This conference will now be recorded.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I want to call the Board of Water Wastewater Commissioners meeting to order for Tuesday, January 26th, 2021. I'm just going to take a roll call for attendance. Alan?
Here.
Judith?
Here.
And I believe we also have Wellesley, Tracy, Sandy, and Dan's on the call as well. First, looking for a motion for the consent agenda for the minutes for January 5th.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Any discussion? I'll take a roll call vote. Alan?
Aye.
Judith?
Aye.
That's an aye for myself. Thank you. Moving on to the abatements, 885 Queen Anne Road. I read the write-up on the abatement, and I know Wellesley's on the call. Can you just clarify a little bit? Because I'm not quite sure what the reasoning is for the abatement, because it was a new home and they weren't living there, or it was a new purchased home?
Hi, Gary, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, hi. Hi, everyone. So yes, this abatement is for 885 Queen Anne Road. And the current owner purchased the property in the middle of 2018. So they did have a secondary property address. So as you know, we have been doing periodic audits on all 10,000 accounts for zero usage. And due to the nature of where we are, it's very difficult to know which accounts are true zeros and which could be just second property owners where the houses might be under construction or unlived in, or, or just not used, especially with a new purchase, because usually homeowners like to renovate and they keep it closed for a while until they're ready to come down. So this particular account caught my eye for zero usage the following year, thinking it was a bit odd the new owner didn't use anything. So we went out to check the meter, and it was confirmed that it wasn't registering. In this case, because the owner was new, we didn't have any usage history. So I, told her that we would have to wait a few billing periods so that we would have some history to base estimations on for the non-registering meter. And so with this most recent January period, that gave us 4 cycles to base estimations on for the zero usage bills. After we issued the bill along with a letter, explaining the method, she got back to us to relay that the property was in fact only used a portion of the time because she was still living in Connecticut, and where her, I believe it was her son or relation, was living at the property intermittently in that period. So she felt that the estimations were on the high side because she was not here on a full-time basis, and she's asking for you to consider the amount that we estimated to bring it down.
So, Wellesley, how long were they actually using water that they weren't being charged for if the meter wasn't working?
We will never know that. We can't know. Because back and forth, if they were coming and going and then they had someone living there, sometimes we can't know, they can't know, just how much may have gone through the meter. So that was sort of the reason why I waited a few billing cycles so that we can get an idea of what the routine usage would be. So with 4 billing cycles, we based the estimations on the data that we've collected over the past year. But it just so happened, and she explained that the usage was only really started within the last year because of her living in Connecticut. So unfortunately, we'll just never know the answer to that. So we use the best available information based on the actual readings in the last year.
And quite honestly, we have no way of telling if she was actually here using it throughout the entire time. I mean, we're just going on, you know, her word for that, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know, you know, we can never know. We just base it on the actuals that we've collected.
All right, well, I mean, just in my opinion, I don't know how we can make an accurate charge. I really don't want to charge someone without having, you know, the full history on that. So I can understand the abatement request. I mean, I don't like it either, but if it sounds like that we made a mistake here, and I don't think it's fair to charge the homeowner for.
If I may, Gary.
Yep.
So when, per our rules and regulations, how we handle these, when a meter fails to register usage, we go by the best available information that we have. That's just how our rules, you know, read. So when we do have to estimate, we usually have history going back, you know, because typically it's not a brand new owner. In this case, it just happens to be a brand new owner.
Right.
So hence the waiting for the actuals. But based on our rules and regs, it basically, you know, explains that we just use the best data that we have to be as accurate as we can with the estimations.
Right.
And that's how we've always handled these.
Right. Alan?
I'm looking at the numbers here. We go back to July 2020, and they had a water use. What did that go? 162.62? Wait a minute. Yeah, it looks like July through was 162.62, and they paid that. And then 12/31/2020 was 50. What is that? $50.62, right? No.
Well, 6/22/20 was 71.17. What I'm looking at.
Now, I was just trying to see where we were in the last billing cycle.
All right, and then 9/24 looks like was 162.62.
So the potential to use that water is there. So that was a quarterly billing, right? 162.60.
Yeah.
So, you know, they've had a long ride, with no charge. I don't see how writing it off. I just can't do that.
Judith?
I'm leaning towards Alan. So if I'm understanding correctly, Wesley, is the homeowner thinking that the estimation was not the same, was different because they said that the house was empty? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes. So from the abatement and how she explained it, so the usage was sort of started in 2019 rather than 2018 when they purchased it. So they're looking to have the amount lowered because of the earlier estimations from when she said that they were actually here and when they weren't. So she believes that the estimations done in 2018 are too high.
And she wants
that's the period when she, you know, was, I guess, in Connecticut, and then they sort of started using the house more last year in 2020.
So, when did they purchase the house?
June of 2018.
Next, I'm looking at July 2018, and there's 0 water recorded. And that's
Right. So we got, let's see here. They purchased in June of 2018, and that's the period when the meters stopped registering. And we didn't know about it until the following year when it came up on the audit report.
And then it looks like they were using 40,000, 10,000, 4,000. I mean, even in December, is that right? 3, 4, that's, yeah, well, it's January, February, March, 4,000.
Question, if I may.
Yeah.
Wellesley, if I'm looking at the second page of usage, right, the meter reading on June 27th of 2018 was an actual, right, of 219,000 gallons.
That was a final reading that we got.
And was that prior to, that was right around the time that they made the purchase, right, the June of 18. And now, if
So it's a very good point that you bring up, because when we took the final reading, it may have already stopped because we got the reading remotely. We didn't go into the property. So the final read, I mean, it may have been low because it had already stopped at that point. So it stopped sometime between March 5th and June 15th, and we don't know when.
June 15th of 18.
Yes.
Okay, because I'm just looking at the history. So I see the 219,000 gallons, and then we have estimated readings from 18 through 19. And is that meter change out on January 16th of 2020?
That's right.
Is that 252,000 gallons the actual read that we got when we took the meter out?
Right. So when we let me just open that. I'm just trying to, okay, so when we changed the meter on January 16th, the meter had stopped at 218,780.
Okay.
And did she come for the summer or for weekends in that time period before her son moved in? Or it's not clear? I mean, is that why she's asking?
Well, I believe in her statement, it mentions that they were still living and working in Hartford until January of 2020 when we changed the meter.
But I guess my question is, did they not use the home on weekends or, for some weeks during the summer?
We have no way of knowing
You have no
that.
way. And they didn't say anything.
Well, they're saying they didn't.
No. The only thing that she mentioned in her abatement was that the son moved in March of 2020, so this past year, and I'm quoting, has been much heavier usage than the period when the meter wasn't working. So heavier usage would indicate that there was usage.
I concur with you.
I think,
So she's
What-
asking for us to cut it in half, in other words, correct? Not to wipe it out.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm okay with cutting it in half because there are unknowns, as Gary said, but at the same point, we can't just not have them pay because the meter wasn't running because clearly water was used.
and quite honestly, we could be undercharging them because we have no way of knowing how much water they actually used. So, I mean, when a meter stops working, and it doesn't register, where does that liability fall? I'm assuming it falls on us if that meter is not working.
I'm sorry, Gary, is that for me or?
I'm just talking out loud. I mean, just in general, if we have faulty equipment and it's not registering accurately, and really unique situation like this, where it's a new homeowner. It was, you know, at a time that they're saying we have the way to verify that they were here or not. I mean, to charge them for, you know, an average usage when we don't really have that actual number. I think the best case scenario, if anything, is to go with the charging half, because as much as I don't like it, I just don't think it's right to use the data that really isn't. I don't think accurate, but there's no way of knowing if they were here or not. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
And so
Gary, if I may?
they are requesting that it be reduced to 114.22, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Wellesley, I'm sorry, go ahead. Okay, Judith.
Oh, no, I was going to make a motion to close the discussion if.
Hold on to that thought, because Wellesley's going to make a comment. Wellesley?
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to mention one other thing. It's always very tricky for us to do the estimations. But, you know, we would hope that when customers receive bills and they see zero usage on their bills, they would alert us. And we can't obviously ask that, but it would be our hope, and especially with quarterly billing now, where we can hopefully catch these much sooner than we have in the past. And maybe with assistance from the customer as well when they see something that's unusual on their bill. Just like high readings, you know, if it's unusually low, to bring it to our attention. But we do the best we can with the data we have under the seasonal circumstances of home ownership.
Believe me, Wellesley, believe me, that wasn't a comment towards you about missing anything, because obviously, you're on top of everything here, and you did catch it. But again, we just don't have the information to go back for their actual usage, and it's not. Again, it's not. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, obviously, but it's hard to determine exactly what the charge should be when our equipment wasn't operating properly. So.
Oh, definitely. It's we never know if we're too high or too low. We just hope we're kind of in the ballpark. Right.
So, Alan, any other comments?
Yeah, I don't want to give it 50%. You know, I say give them a $50 credit off that 228.
So are you making a motion, Alan?
Yeah. Wait a minute. Yeah, wait a minute. 8. So $50 off the bill makes it $178.44. It's more in keeping of what some of the bills were, $162 and so on and so forth. So I'd say I'd offer a motion that we give them a $50 credit.
All right. So the motion is an abatement for $178.44. Is there a second?
Sure.
Any further discussion? I'll take a vote by roll call. Alan?
All right.
Judith?
Aye.
As an aye for myself. All right. Thank you.
Can I make one quick comment, Gary?
Absolutely.
Leslie, just to follow on something you said about, we would hope that customers do call if they see a zero on their bill, because sensors break, things break, and at the end of the day, the water department is a public utility, and it's everyone's water. So everyone should absolutely call in if they see something that looks askew with their bill.
That would certainly make my job easier.
I agree with you, but unfortunately.
Right.
All right, let's move on to the FY22 wastewater budget. I'm sorry. Where am I going? Hold on. FY21 Q2 water department usage. Dan, is that you or is that Sandy?
Yeah, I can jump on. Yeah, so this is as we see on a quarterly basis, abatement for internal usage to the department. This covers all of our domestic use for analyzers and our facilities.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the department usage in the amount of $1,543.27.
Is there a second?
There's a second.
Any further discussion? I'll take a vote by roll call. Alan?
Aye.
Judith?
Aye.
And it's an aye for myself. Thank you. All right. FY21 second quarter internal adjustments.
Hi, Mr. Chair. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. The amount for the second quarter internal adjustments is for $4,335.92.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? I'll take a vote by roll call. Alan?
Aye.
Judith?
Aye.
And it's an aye for myself. Thank you. All right. Moving on to the FY22 wastewater budget.
I got sewer use regulations first, but that was just, an update to let the board know that those have been shared with Chatham. We did send them certified, so that window has begun to start ticking.
Dan, so Chatham has responded?
They haven't responded yet, but we did send the proposed amendments to them via certified mail, so that we could ensure we had a signature date to start, because they have 15 days to respond once they receive them. So once we get that certified, stamp back that comes with the certified mailing, we can start to plan out when we want to hold our rate hearing or our public hearing for the sewer use regulations.
So through all the correspondence you've done, emails and such, we haven't had any response to those.
So I was finally able to get a response. I believe it was yesterday. I sent another correspondence to members of Chatham's administration requesting, budget documents and so on. So I was finally provided with the wastewater budget for Chatham's operations for FY22, which I can touch on in just a minute.
Who responded to you with that?
Bob Duncanson provided those.
Okay.
So, we sent our first request, I want to say November, so it's been a couple months.
So as far as the wastewater budget goes, we don't have any changes or anything to deal with on that budget, right?
We do. So yeah, let me, I'm just going to screen share so I can show you what we were provided, where those changes are in the operating budget. Bear with me for just 1 second. All right. Going a little slow. Let me know when that pops up for you.
Yep.
So what's on the screen now is the FY22 Town of Chatham Sewer Department operating budget. The budget was provided to us in a different format than it was last year. So I just want to kind of go through some of the bigger changes that we saw this year. And to do that, I did put together, I updated the figures in this sheet that I believe everyone is pretty familiar with. Let me just make the text bigger so that everyone can see it. Is that legible on the screen for you guys?
Yeah.
I had binoculars.
So the biggest changes in their budget were with respect to plant maintenance, which in FY21 they had $145,000. This year they went up to $174,000, which is a 17% increase. Of that, we pay $33,000 of, because we're we're paying, that's as a fixed cost, we're paying 23% of what Chatham's expense is. The other item that was pretty considerable jump was solid waste disposal. They went from $75,000 a year to $132,000. I suspect that is attributed to the difficulty that essentially all wastewater entities are having disposing of their residual solids. I know there was a septic plant in Barnstable that closed down that they used to truck everything to, and I believe now it's going up to Maine. I am going to reach out to Bob in Chatham and try to get some confirmation as to what these increases were related to. But for this conversation, that I believe is the source. The other big change, the contract operations budget for Chatham went from $584,000 to $621,500. So it was a 6% increase. The treatment chemicals stayed the same, and the groundwater monitoring actually was reduced in half. So those are the highlighted changes, if you will, of what we've now incorporated into this document. And I know Sandy has updated the traditional forms that we typically present. The only remaining outstanding item that's likely going to impact the operating budget is this contract operations line item here. And we are in the process of now formally setting up an INA meeting with the town of Chatham to discuss the connection at the bottom of 137, as well as the contract operations and cost sharing by using Chatham's vac truck, jet truck, so that Harwich doesn't have to purchase those assets on our own. So I presume hopefully we'll have a number to that relatively soon. And that's another thing that we can discuss under the wastewater, it was the action items or tasks pre-startup. So that's one of these items, if that's a segue we want to get into or hang on to the budget for a minute. So
I actually have a question, Dan, regarding the plant maintenance, the solid waste, and the contract services, the three that went up.
Yep.
You said that we pay 23% of their budget.
For fixed costs, right? So that the 300,000 gallons of capacity that we purchase from their plant equates to 23.08% of the cost the capacity of their plant, right? So with fixed costs like plant maintenance and contract services, those where's it going? So those are tied to the fixed asset itself, the plant, right? The other ones are the flow variable, which are contingent upon, our percentage of flow as compared to Chatham's. Okay, so I guess my question is, the amount that we are to pay Chatham really could fluctuate year to year based on their budget. Yes.
So we have to budget.
And that was really the source of a lot of my headaches when we were preparing the Harwich FY22 sewer operating budget, is that there are all these variables that we don't populate. They're populated from, what Chatham's plant needs in their operation. So until they give us what they have, we're kind of left out hanging, which was, really the 2 months that we waited for this information.
I was under the assumption that we were going to, pay them one base rate. This was all incorporated in the negotiations, but it doesn't. It's going to change on a year-to-year basis. This is basically kind of like trying to budget indirects.
Right. Yeah, and I think what you were thinking of with the fixed cost is tied to that $1.5 million capacity purchase fee. So those are going to be forthcoming as well, though they're funded out of the full $9 million that we appropriated to purchase the capacity. So that's, I think, what those are for. But these are, like you said, if they have, and to be quite honest, further discussions need to be had with respect to how these costs are shared, because contract operations for the town of Chatham includes a wastewater treatment plant and however many pump stations and the operators to man those pump stations, which in my opinion isn't something that we should be paying for because we're not using all of their collection system stations. This is one of the items I hope to address in our upcoming IMA meeting. But these, unfortunately, a change to that would be, I don't know if it would need to be incorporated into an IMA revision or if it could be worked out through like a side letter.
Well, I mean, my concern is, they're going to raise these rates, these costs. I mean, 17, 43, and 6%, because they know we're paying a percentage of that.
Right, and that's why I want to make sure we get, hard reasoning from them as, justification for the increase. What I addressed with respect to the solid waste disposal increase, I only know of that because I've participated in a couple of calls where they've been trying to figure out what to do with their residuals. So I know that that's been a problem for wastewater systems. So that's, it's speculative, but, that likely would be a realistic explanation for that. I don't know the other ones. So I think it's perfectly within our right to ask for clarification, and I certainly intend to do that. Unfortunately, I got it, I think it was yesterday, was it yesterday? It might have been yesterday, so I didn't have the time to have that back and forth yet.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, Dan, go ahead.
All right, so jumping in now to the wastewater tasks. Is that where we're headed?
Yep.
All right, so let me just pull up my other, I think I can stop screen sharing right now. All right. So I just really wanted to have this kind of be a two-part thing. I have a couple of items, obviously, that we all need to take action on, but really also to kind of have a discussion about how we want to approach the next 4 months. Right now, the most updated construction schedules are showing that contract 2 will actually finish first, and that's projected for June of 21, and contract 1 is currently projected for July of 2021. So before that, we start operating the collection system, we obviously have to formally adopt the amended sewer use rules and regulations, which we can do in pretty quick order once we get the response from Chatham. Another item, as I alluded to, negotiating a contract for the operations of the collection system. I have had some additional discussions with Weston and Sampson regarding that due to the communication difficulties that we had. As to whether we should start considering writing our own independent RFP right now, or if we should try to continue to have the discussions with Chatham. I think at this point, where there appears to be some traction for that conversation, I would lean towards exploring that option because there's potential for cost savings. But if those discussions in the next week or so don't appear to be positive, then I think it would be time now for us to start going through the exercise, preparing a request for proposals. Additionally, this is more on the water side, but related to wastewater. We have to implement the irrigation meter policy. We had discussed it when we went through the water rules and regulations with the intention to bring it back, but I think that's another thing that we need to iron out. We've also taken the first steps in working with Munis. If I'm not mistaken, Sandy, I believe, signed the agreement to get the training for the wastewater utility billing component started. So those are really the kind of 4 big ones that I wanted to start the conversation with, and then kind of see what the board was thinking above and beyond that.
Well, I think the irrigation, we need to get a move on that. And, adopting the rules and regulations obviously should go hand in hand with that at the same time. Can we do that all in the same meeting?
Yeah, let me look into exactly the way. I'm sure that we can hold a rate hearing for the wastewater regulations as well as the water regulations. I'm sure we can, just procedurally. I don't know if we have to open one and close one. We likely have to add, so, but yeah, I don't, let me get the answer on that, but I'm sure we probably can.
Well, and of course, too, we're working kind of with our hands tied here with the whole COVID and social distancing, and that kind of put a big damper on meetings and getting as much done as we wanted to. But I believe we're all set with the rules and regulations. We've gone through it, we voted on it to approve and adopt, and I believe we've also already voted the wastewater.
Yep.
And the water rates.
Yeah, and that's another thing that big one to add to the list is sewer rates, right? And
water rates.
Yeah, but we also, another thing prior to June, July, we have to establish and adopt the sewer rates. So I guess, do we want to try to do all four of these in one meeting? Adoption of sewer rates, adoption of water rates, adoption of wastewater regulations, and adoption of water regulations?
I think we should, in my opinion, I think we should do 2 and 2, regulations and rates, and break it down that way. And, again, my opinion.
It makes sense to me because then we're talking finance and regulation and regulation.
Right.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
I agree.
So, I think it's really just going to be keeping these, or this item on the agenda. And I'm going to try to put together an Excel sheet that we can track progress. Because it's 4 months. In my opinion, we have sufficient time, but there's a lot of moving parts that we just want to make sure that it's clearly defined how we're getting there.
Agreed.
So in addition to, we should start to consider educational components with what with bringing the system online. People are oftentimes a lot more cautious with the Title V septic system, because it's their problem. But when they're not cautious with a septic system, with a sewer system, it becomes our problem. And clogging pumps, people flushing wipes and things of that nature. So, what I had thought or had envisioned was that with the orders to connect that go out, those are ultimately going to be sent by the Board of Health, but that we could include with that some educational, packet as to the do's and don'ts. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yep. And try to hit some of those, educational components, because they're only going to pay dividends in the long run.
Right.
And also, I mean, through you, Gary, but if I would be happy to open it up to Tracy, Sandy, and Wellesley on the call as well, because they are certainly going to be, impacted by this. And I don't want to imply or miss anything on their behalf.
Well, again, just where does it fall under their responsibility for wastewater calls, issues, or concerns? Is that being handled on the other side?
So I have had
Dan, no, or whoever. I don't get it either.
Yeah, so I have had staff meetings with our group of people. I've reached out to administration to try to see what or if there's anything contractually, and I don't know that this is the right place to get into that. I don't have any answers, I guess, from regarding that.
But this discussion's being had.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
And like I said, Sandy, if I'm not mistaken, had signed the agreement yesterday with Munis to get the training started with, trying to work with the information we have, to try to keep everything progressing, but with respect to, people's positions as they are. So.
Okay. Wellesley, Tracy, Sandy, you have anything you'd like to add?
Just what Dan referenced with the Munis contract that needs to be signed, or just the what we need to sign to move forward for wastewater billing to be implemented. I have not signed that yet, but I will be doing that in the next day or so and getting that moving along. They have told us in an email that it will be scheduled in a few weeks from when we submit that. So I imagine within the next month, we're going to be working on implementing wastewater billing into our water billing. And that's all I have to add.
Okay.
Well, from where I see it is, so Dan, you and the staff need to move on all these issues and then drag us along with you.
Right. Certainly.
All right.
And Gary, yeah, this is Wellesley, just quickly.
Yes.
Just going from what Sandy just mentioned and Dan, it's just a matter of just getting in the saddle really at this point, you know, just education and getting as much as we possibly can so that when we do flip the switch, so to speak, we're ready and we know how to answer questions. We know, you know, who to direct calls to when problems arise, or, you know, and even down to the billing component, you know, just understanding how it all works, so that when customers do start to get bills, I'm sure they're going to be as confused as someone, you know, getting something brand new and not understanding how it works. So the more we have on our end, the better we'll be prepared to, you know, I guess, handle it and the best we can so it's as smooth as we can make it.
Right. Thank you. Okay, Dan.
I think that's all I have on that one.
Okay. So moving on to new business, FY21 second quarter billing commitment.
Hi, Gary. And board. Gary had signed the second quarter commitment in order for us to print and mail the bills. So I've enclosed in the meeting packet a copy of the commitment that was signed, which indicates that we billed 131,680 million gallons with a revenue total of $736,591. The other document that I provided to you is a comparison with the new methodology and the forecasting that was predicted for this quarter's two billing. There's a document that you will see this comparison projection versus actual. And at the very top, the projection shows, you know, our forecast, and then the low confidence and high confidence, as well as the revenue tiers regarding the same. The center of the document is the actual billing. So you can see that the gallons that we billed, 131,681,000, is far great, you know, it's greater than the forecast above, the low confidence and the high confidence. So we did exceed our projection, and that very well is COVID and people being at home and using more water. On the revenue side, you can see that the increase in pumpage increased the revenues accordingly to $706,127, which exceeds, again, of course, the revenue projected for the usage. And then below is the differences between the projections versus actual. And then at the very bottom are the recurring charges added into the usage, which total, you know, $736,557.30. And that very closely, as close as I can get it, matches the billing commitment page of $736,591. So, so we're in a good place for the commitment. And I didn't know, Wellesley, if there was anything you wanted to add about how the billing went or any issues regarding quarter two. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, may I?
Yes, go right ahead.
Oh, thanks. Sorry, I never know when I'm muted or not. No, that's right on, Sandy. It was a relatively good reading period. And, you know, after these figures came in and, you know, adjustments were made with all those estimations that I was setting on for non-registering meters, that always moves the target around a little bit. You know, we're doing the best we can, not being able to get into change meters that are problematic. So the few that are still in the system will continue to be adjusted as we move forward until we can go in and actually rectify those. But all in all, it was a good cycle. And yeah, I'm thankful because, you know, working remote and, you know, the ups and downs of that, we're all doing our part to get through. So everything is running as smoothly as we can possibly make it right now. So the billing did go well, and I'm thankful to be able to say that, and the figures look great.
Thank you. Anything else for the water budget report?
Well, for the commitment, that was all for the water commitment, the quarter two water commitment.
Okay.
Yeah, and if I can just echo, you know, what Sandy touched upon with the flows. You know, if you recall, when we did the methodology, we had a forecast, a low confidence, and a high confidence. And those low and high confidence had a gallon span of 100 million gallons, which is typically the range that we see between a wet year and a dry year. And this year is yet another record year where we pumped more than we ever have historically. So this is one of those dry years that superseded our range there. So that's just an acknowledgement of where it was in reflection to the estimations.
Thanks, Dan. All right, you want to move on to the wastewater budget?
Actually, the next item is the FY21 quarter two water budget report. Dan has put on is showing the screen because page 1 of the budget report in your packet seems to be missing. So this is page 1 of the quarter two water budget report. You can see, you know, we're halfway through the fiscal year, just over halfway, and are, you know, pretty much there we are. 52% of our salary and wage budget has been expended. Going on to page 2, Dan, if you wouldn't mind, if you can scroll page 2. On page 2, you can see the available budget that we have remaining and the expenses, which indicates on this report $589,250. And by the looks of this report, it shows we've spent 73% of our budget. That is not the case because the encumbrance column, once again, is outstanding money that's set aside for purchase orders. So really you have to add the 589 to the 267. And when you do that, and do the math, we've spent 39% of our expense budget. So we're actually, we're under, the 50% threshold, which we would anticipate we might be at by now. So expense-wise, the expenses all look good, and we're right within where, our comfortable range. Moving down to the revenues, we have collected 70% of our projected revenue, and we've only billed 2 quarters, and the second quarter due date isn't, and it's not until February 8th. So that 70% includes, is mostly quarter 1, and the pumpage, that we saw exceeding way more than our projections. So, I can see that we are definitely going to exceed our projections in this fiscal year. And that's it for the water budget. I don't know if there's anything that stands out that you have a question on, or everything's in a good place, and I'm comfortable with where we're at. And, until next quarter, I'll give you another update, and also like where all of our accounts receivables are, what we've collected, what's outstanding, that sort of thing, next quarter.
Thank you, Sandy.
You're welcome.
Alan, Judith, any questions?
No, I'm good.
Oh, good.
All
Nice
right,
work.
Dan? I believe we're on to Pleasant Lake tank. No, I'm sorry, wastewater budget.
Yeah, okay. The wastewater budget, Dan, and the board, what I did was, again, I followed the same process that I do with updating the water budget. So it's a Munis-generated budget report. And the exception with this one is that I did print the detail on this, because the detail, there's not a lot of detail because it's still new and there's not a lot of transactions in the budget. If I were to print quarter 2 of the water budget, it would probably be like 15, 20, 30 pages. But for the wastewater, I felt until, as we're all getting comfortable with the expenses and the movement within the wastewater budget, wastewater enterprise fund budget, that it would be good to just continue to give you like some detail so that we all become familiar with all the charges and everything together. So you can see, and one of the things that stood out to me is, well, now you can see on the salary and wages on page 1, the second item down, the salary and wages, you can see that I have started to process payroll with charges to the wastewater enterprise fund. So what was projected was 5% of our admin, Tracy Wellesley, and my salary, as well as one of the Dana, one of the field staff. So you can see that I've started to charge the wastewater enterprise fund for Dan's salary and the 5% of our salary. And moving forward, Dan's salary for the rest of this fiscal year will be paid from the wastewater enterprise fund. So that was something that stood out. Another is going on to page 2, you can see that Carol has allotted the interest that's been earned on the wastewater enterprise fund. So you can see that she's put forth those credits. I see where she's noted clear to the right, water and sewer. And so I haven't had a chance yet to ask her, but I want to clarify that that is interest only for the wastewater enterprise fund and does not include the water enterprise fund. I'm sure it doesn't because I know she does things separately, but because it's noted that way, I just want to confirm that. But that's all I have for the wastewater Q2 FY21 budget. I don't know if there's anything, Dan, you have, or we good with that, or the board?
Sandy, just a quick question regarding salary and wages. Dan's salary and the admin salary. Looking at I don't know, maybe about $97,000. That's going to be paid out of the wastewater budget.
Correct.
Yes.
But does that mean the water budget is going to be saving that?
That is correct.
Added back into the water budget.
Yes, we budgeted our water salary and wages accordingly. So for this fiscal year, the water enterprise fund is only carrying half of Dan's salary, and the other half is wastewater enterprise fund. And that's the way it will be until, that's how we budgeted it for FY22.
Okay.
And in addition to Dan, as I mentioned, the amount, the 5% is sort of what's been used for admin and the one field staff person for now. And that may change moving forward to do, as we're more involved where the department grows.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Sandy.
And with the long-term vision of having another person help, correct? Because we can't duplicate you, Dan. Time-wise, right?
Clone him. We can clone
him. That would be awesome. But at some point, you are going to max out on your brain power, I think, and capacity, right?
Yeah, and
in other words, yes, the money comes into the water budget, but at some point when the wastewater ends up taking a lot more of your time, we need to figure that piece out.
We're pretty much there.
You think? Yeah.
No, it's all right. And and realistically too, though, when we talk about contract operations, Val, who works for Weston and Sampson and operates the Chatham facility, he does a lot of customer interaction stuff too that would certainly take some weight off of my shoulders. With East Harwich contracts 1 and 2, I probably went at hundreds of houses, probably in the plural, to help people lay out their stubs and whatnot. So, that's something that we could certainly use help on.
I just wanted to put it out there that money is, at some point, it's got to, yeah.
Yeah. Alan, anything else?
No, I'm good. No.
All right, Dan. The Pleasant Lake tank project.
Yeah, so just wanted to give the board an update as to the status of the P Lake tank project. So since the last time we met, the contractors demolished all of the interior piping. Right now, they're working on fabrication of the new 24-inch riser pipe. They're also started the first of 3 coats of paint on the piping material, so they'll likely start assembling that early next week. The last piece that's still working to coordinate is the tank contractor. The guys who are welding interior are not also going to be the same guys that dig to make the connection on the outside. So they're actually in conversation with Robert Auer now, as I understand it, to make that exterior connection for them. So the project's about, if we had to estimate, about 30% complete right now. But I would say by the time we have our next meeting, it would probably be almost all done.
Oh, nice. Any other questions about P Lake? And Periwinkle update.
Yeah, so we had a second break on Periwinkle Way, I believe it was last week. Again, it's an 8-inch water main. We had another break there back in December. So I just wanted to kind of bring this up to the board to have a conversation about. We had 2 breaks, within a month and a half. It's an 8-inch cast iron water main, and it was installed in 1973. The main that feeds that neighborhood actually comes off of Arrowhead, and that was installed in 1970. So that whole neighborhood in there, is, I wouldn't say 1970s or let's rip it out and replace it, but I think that we should do some more investigation. We could do, some test pits. The pipe that broke initially in December was a linear crack. The break that we had last week was a radial crack. So instead of going a long way, it goes over the diameter of the pipe. It was much smaller and was called in a lot sooner. So it wasn't as catastrophic as the previous one. But just to see kind of how the board thought about that, I think, in my opinion, the best thing to do, like I said, is to get a better understanding on where there's corrosion in that neighborhood. Because we didn't see the same pitting we saw last week on the break up the street. All right, so the condition is varying. Granted, they're about 600 feet away from each other. But that would be, I guess, my recommendation at this point.
Yeah, was the second break at the top of the hill as well?
No, so you were there. If you recall where the resident's house that was flooded, and then it came back up where we were discharging the water into the catch basin, and then goes back downhill again. So it was on the other downhill side closer to Arrowhead.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? Why don't I just share my screen and show you?
So why would you not put together whatever it costs to replace those mains and all the connections, and we could fund it this next town meeting, possibly?
So, and that's certainly a path forward. It is a lot bigger so if you're seeing the screen here, right in the middle, let me get my little highlighter. Okay, so right here is Periwinkle Way. Yeah. And it turns to Arrowhead. This entire neighborhood, all right here, is 1973 cast iron. So it's a lot bigger of a project per se without doing that investigation. If we're replacing Periwinkle, that's 600 feet. If we're doing, the entire neighborhood, it's a much more sizable project. So I don't want to do it if we don't have to. If there's still pipe in there that's in great shape and it's really just Periwinkle, I'd hate to rip out good pipe and spend the money that we could use elsewhere. But I think, Alan, to your point, yeah, if that's the direction we want to go, I think that's the direction we head in.
Yeah. Well, where we've had 2 on Periwinkle, I would think that's the one to deal with. I didn't realize that they were putting cast iron in the 70s. I thought pretty much everything was ductile at that point, but
yeah, that's what we got, unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right, let's put that on the to-do list too, I guess. Jeez.
The ever-growing list.
Yeah.
Would the pipe from the street to the homeowners be the same?
No, those should be all fine. The service tubing?
Those should be all fine. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Anything else?
Under Periwinkle, no. I do have a few items under the superintendent's report. So to bring the board up to speed, we've contracted with Horsley Witten Group to conduct our risk and resiliency assessment. So in 2018, the federal government passed the America's Water Infrastructure Act that mandated all public water suppliers to complete a risk and resiliency assessment and certify to EPA that that's been completed. there was a rollout schedule depending on the size of the public water utility. So where we're a medium large category, we have to submit that report or certify that report in June. So I just wanted to let the board know that we are actively working on that report. We had a kickoff meeting last week with another follow-up meeting this morning where we started to dig into some of the department's critical assets and things of that nature. So just that will be producing ultimately a risk and resiliency assessment report that will come before the department as well as the certification through EPA. And then another item I wanted to see if the board would be amicable to is if water departments, so with COVID, the variety of strains that are, almost feel like they're coming out every day, to see if the board would have an appetite to cover voluntary testing for department staff. So the way that the Department of Public Health states, we're only supposed to get a test if you're close contact or have with someone with COVID, or if you don't have that, you have to pay for the test on your own. And where, as a public water supplier, we're really trying to make sure that we can keep the staff protected so that we can maintain, the quantity of licensed operators and keep continued operation. So I was seeing if the board would be willing to offset the cost of elective tests so that, staff could test as they see fit to make sure that they're not bringing it to work or bringing it from home.
I think it's a good proposal because you need to keep going regardless, it's essential.
And is there, like all the water departments on the Cape, for example, is there a way that you guys can go in for a bulk cost on this? Or is it that the individuals would go to the testing centers and then we'd reimburse their insurance? Right.
So, we've had, someone on our staff voluntarily got a test,
Yeah, it's like $150 or something.
So, and I feel like everyone here at the department is cautious and no one wants to spread it, but, at the same time, where you can only get a test if you've had direct exposure, doesn't give a lot of comfort. And I just don't want people not to get a test because it's going to cost them $150.
Right.
Or $100.
I will say this, Dan. I'm in favor of the testing, and I don't have a problem covering the cost of it. I just I would like to see any employee wanting to go reach out to you first. I just don't want it to become someone's getting tested every day. Not that I think anybody in the water department would do that, but at the same time, I would like you to keep tabs on how often they're going. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Just keep tabs on it. That's all. But yeah, I don't have an issue with that at all. I think that's being proactive, and we need to do that. So.
And also, I think if they think that they might have been exposed, isn't there like a 4 to 7 day incubation period that they're supposed to
5 days
stay
after
home?
your test, right? So 5 days after the test is I believe the incubation time that you're supposed to wait to get a test.
Okay.
And again, it's really
how are we treating that? I mean,
the sick time that was provided through the CARES Act was expired December 31st, I believe. So now if anyone is out due to COVID or anything COVID related, employees have to use their own sick time.
I think the federal government's working on a
extension.
I mean, clearly it's for frontline folks. Something has to be. It's not like staying home with the flu,
I hate to put a time limit on this, but I have to get to work. Is there any other pending issues, Dan?
No, that's all for me.
Anything from the commissioners for a commissioners report?
No.
No.
How about next meeting time?
Yep.
You know,
February.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if it wouldn't be too much to ask to coordinate this after. I did have an opportunity to follow up with the town administrator on one of the former items we've discussed in the past, the Water Commission oversight over department staff.
Yep.
And if the board wants to have that conversation in the more near term, I can see what Joe's availability is, and we can have him get on the meeting as well.
That's what I'm saying.
All right, so I can get some dates from him, and I can ask Tracy to share that and coordinate.
Does that work with Alan and Judith?
What, wait a minute, you left me behind.
Sorry.
What item?
So I had followed up with Joe on the Water Wastewater Commission oversight over department staff topic that was raised a few months back. I talked to him about that on Monday and thought that it would be appropriate if the board wants to continue those conversations to have Joe come in and the board, you know, Joe, myself can kind of discuss that.
Okay, yeah, okay.
All right. So just you'll give us those dates then, Dan.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect.
Is there any? Gary, you got to go. I won't hold it up anymore.
Is there something pending?
No.
Okay. That's all right. Okay. So we'll wait to hear from you about the dates for the next meeting.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
A motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And I'll take a roll call vote. Alan,
All right.
Judith,
Aye.
and it's an aye for myself. Thank you very much for your time today, and we look forward to hearing to you, Dan, for our next meeting.
Sounds good.
Awesome.